It's funny how life has a way of surprising you. You think you know where things are headed, but then everything flips upside down when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened to me one evening when my wife, Sarah, told me she wanted an open marriage. We had been married for almost 7 years at the time. Our relationship had its ups and downs, but I never thought it would come to this. Her asking for an open marriage. It started as a casual conversation at dinner, just the two of us sitting at our kitchen table, eating spaghetti and talking about our day. At first, I thought she was joking. The thought didn't even cross my mind that she could be serious. "I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice soft but steady. She wasn't smiling, so I knew this wasn't going to be some light-hearted joke. "About what?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. I kept twirling my pasta on my fork, trying to keep the mood casual, but my mind was starting to race. "About us," she replied, "and what we need. I think we should open our marriage. You know, try new things, experience more, keep things exciting." I froze mid-bite. Did I hear her right? Did she just say she wanted an open marriage? "Wait, what?" I said, putting my fork down, my mind still trying to process what she had said. She looked at me, her expression serious. "I think it would help us grow. It doesn't mean I don't love you. I do, but maybe we could explore other connections while still being together." I blinked a few times, trying to figure out how to respond. This was not what I had signed up for. This wasn't something we had ever talked about before. I always thought our marriage was solid, maybe not perfect, but certainly strong enough that we didn't need to complicate things. "Sarah, are you serious? You're asking me if I'm okay with the idea of us being with other people?" She nodded. "Yeah. I think it would be good for us. It could bring us closer in the long run. There are things we can't get from each other, and I think this could be a way to fulfill that." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure whether I should laugh or be angry. It felt like everything I knew about our relationship was being tossed aside, like it didn't matter. "I need time to think about this," I said, standing up and walking away from the table. My mind was racing. I needed space to process this, to figure out what I even felt. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't something I could ignore. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about what Sarah had said. The idea of her being with someone else was something I could barely wrap my head around. It made me feel strange, uncomfortable, and more than a little insecure. I tried to talk to her about it, but every time I brought it up, she seemed more excited about the idea than I was. She kept telling me it wasn't about me or her not loving each other. It was about freedom, about growth. But to me, it felt like she was asking for permission to step outside the marriage. And I wasn't sure if I could handle that. One evening, after a particularly tense conversation, I decided to do something impulsive, something that would help me cope with the mess she had just thrown into my life. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Ms. Thomas, my old school teacher. She was someone I had always admired. Back in high school, she had been the teacher everyone respected. I had always thought she was kind, intelligent, and beautiful in her own way, but I never acted on those feelings. After graduation, we lost touch, and I moved on. But now, in the middle of this emotional storm, I found myself thinking about her more and more. I remembered how she used to smile at me in class, how she had always been there with a word of encouragement. So, I sent her a message. It was simple, just a hello and a quick catch-up. I didn't expect much to come from it, but to my surprise, she replied almost immediately. We started talking regularly, reminiscing about old times. Her messages were light at first, but over time, they became deeper, more personal. She had divorced a few years ago, and she admitted she had been lonely. It was obvious that she was still as sharp and beautiful as ever, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. One evening, after weeks of messages and phone calls, I invited her out for a drink. I told Sarah I was going to meet some old friends for a catch-up, but in reality, I was meeting Ms. Thomas. When we met, it felt surreal. The bar was dimly lit, and the air was thick with nostalgia. I couldn't stop looking at her. She was dressed casually, but she had an elegance that made her stand out. As we sat at the bar, catching up on everything we had missed in each other's lives, the connection was electric. I couldn't ignore it anymore. As the night went on, we moved closer to each other, our conversation turning more intimate, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It was like something clicked, something I hadn't even realized was missing in my life until that very moment. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt guilty, like I was betraying Sarah, but I also felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. It was as though I had stepped outside my own life and into someone else's, one full of excitement and uncertainty. The next morning, I woke up next to Ms. Thomas, feeling conflicted. I couldn't believe what had happened, but at the same time, I didn't regret it. I didn't want to be part of the open marriage Sarah was asking for. I wanted something real, something that made me feel valued. When I got home, I couldn't look at Sarah the same way. She could see the change in me. I didn't need to tell her what had happened. It was clear. And that was the moment I realized maybe I had never been the one in control of my own life. It wasn't until I took a step back, away from the mess she created, that I realized what I really wanted. I wasn't sure where this would go, where this new connection would take me, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally making choices for myself. And that, more than anything, felt freeing.